So I probably told you we're not going to get into awards, and with all those Grammys, that'd take a while,
Yeah.
and some of them are probably doorknobs now.
Wood ornaments. I got
yeah.
them on the front of the caddy.
So we'll mostly just talk shop.
Okay.
And
I'm easy.
I am going to ask you about quadraphonic because it seems everybody in the music business is. Did I say quadraphonic?
You did.
Yeah, the quadruple album you did, where everybody, well, almost
bypass.
everybody in the business is on the. I think I must have been out of town
Yeah,
that
I think
year.
you were. Yeah.
I was, yeah. Oh, we're rolling. Welcome, I'm Clint Black, and I am talking in circles with Mr. Vince Gill. Thank you for being here.
Good to see you, buddy.
Now, Vince doesn't really know how to talk about the business and stuff, so I'll have to do all the talking.
I'd appreciate it. I'd appreciate it.
There's so many things that I could talk about with you. We've had our chats backstage here and there. The most time we spent together is on the sidelines at basketball games.
That's right. For the last 4 or 5 years, our kids went to school together.
Yep. And of course, we don't talk shop there.
You can't.
Hey,
okay.
what are you doing? You going out? Yeah, I've been
Yeah.
out on the. Oh, yeah, sure. Oh, look at there, they scored. You know, so haven't had a lot of time to really drill down on an amazing career. One of the things that is so elusive to me is the sounds of the recordings, and you're real traditional in your sound, and there is a sound that is you. Of course, once you open your mouth and start singing, it's just a standalone thing, and you know it. But I've spent a lot of time looking and listening to the sounds of other people's records because I'm still not happy. You know, I'm still trying to get it just
Guilty.
so.
Guilty too. I don't know if I go back and look at my records and I don't like a lot of them. You know, I like some of them, but I don't like them all. I don't like every song. I don't like every record. I think that's part of the process is getting better.
Tell us which ones we shouldn't listen to then. You know?
Oh, they're very obvious, painfully obvious over the years.
Not to the rest of us. We hear ourselves differently.
I think so. You know, and I just, you know, I listen to an old record and I won't like the snare sound. I won't like the reverb. You should get better the more you do it. It's interesting. I feel like I sing better now, write better, play better than I ever did, even in all the years of having, you know, the greatest success. That was not ever going to be my barometer of what I was doing well. You know, I think my ears have always kind of led me, and I feel like even though some of these records go largely unnoticed, I think they're better. And so that's enough for me to continue and keep trying and find different ways to create brevity. I think when you're young, you have this tendency to play as much as you can or sing as many riffs as you can and all that stuff. I had a couple of great lessons. I don't know what your experience was in the early part of your career, but man, your first record came out like gangbusters, you know, and you had this great traditional country song in Better Man, and just off you went. And I struggled for a lot of years to try to find the right record, and then When I Call Your Name was the record that kind of did it for me, you know.
And you can't sound any better than that.
Well, you put Patty on the harmony on top, and everybody wins.
She comes right in at the end of that first verse, and it's just that lift.
And
There you go. This was already working, and it got better.
It did, but
you know.
What's funny is that song wasn't really, nobody was talking about that song. It wasn't until she put harmony on there that everybody's ears perked up and said, now that sounds great. You know, it just was kind of one of the songs on the record. And that to me is really the key to great records, is there's something about a great record that's memorable, whether it's a harmony part, a piano intro, or a great opening. I think a lot of the best songs in the world have a great opening line. Yeah. He said, I'll love you till I die, you know, and just on and on. You go back and look through so many of these great songs, and there's a reason, you know, that they get you right off the bat. And same thing with When I Call Your Name was that piano intro by Barry Beckett. it all of a sudden had definition. You know, the record was defined long before I started singing. And being a musician, I thought that way too, you know, and that was equally as important in the process. And you being a musician, I know you're probably very much the same. In all parts of a record are kind of equal and equally as important.
I look at someone like you, and I have my own imaginings of how making a record is for you. You know, grass is always greener, right, on the other side of the fence. But when I call your name and that piano thing starts out, that's instantly, and there's not a lot going on.
I mean, it takes, and I think it takes a lot of experience to learn brevity, to learn being willing to edit yourself. Editing yourself is hard to do when you're young. One of the first sessions I ever got when I was a kid, I've been playing on records since 1974, and it was my turn to play a solo on one of these early sessions, and I was playing my heart out. The producer hits the talk back, and he goes, "Man, that was impressive. That was really great." He goes, "Can we try it again? And this time maybe just play me half of what you know." I said, "Point taken, point taken." You know, and it is really that you learn, and it takes experience in doing that with how can you say the most with the least. Same thing with your lyrics, same thing with your melodies. And that's all I strive for is space and just what's necessary. Guy Clark, great Texas man, was a great proponent of brevity. And
Less
every
is
word,
more.
and every word matters. Every note matters. The jazz guys, one, I don't remember which one it was, man, son, you got to know when to take that horn out of your mouth, you know, and that's the space in between the notes, you know, it's really important.
Let's talk about your Quadrophenia record.
Okay.
It's a quadruple album. Quadruple album, most people don't know this, the most expensive part of making a record is the cost of the musicians, which is as it should be. Mm-hmm. And I'm imagining that's the most expensive album ever made.
That was like a Fleetwood Mac record. You know, it cost so much, right? It cost a ton of money. How that got going was, this was about, I think, 2007, and the radio world of country music had basically shown me the door and weren't going to play too much of my current music anymore, and I saw the writing on the wall. And I got to thinking about records. I don't know how many songs you would wind up writing for a record, but I might write 60, 70 songs to find 8 or 10 that you could put on a record, or maybe more. And so you got all these songs over the last 30 years that had kind of found their way into the bottom of a desk drawer, you know, and never seen again. And might have been some good songs in there, you never know. But I got in the studio and nobody was beating my door down to get a new record. You know, the record company wasn't beating me up saying, "Hey, you need to get a record out." So I had plenty of time, and I'd written a ton of songs. And I just started recording these songs, and I went for like a week with the guys, and I said, "Hey, are you guys doing anything next week?" And they go, "No, we're not booked." I said, "Let's do another week. I got a bunch more songs. I'd like to see what they turn into." So after a few weeks of this, I looked up and I'd recorded, I think, 32 songs. And some pretty cool records had showed up because of it. And then I said, well, crap, now I'm going to have to punt 25 of these, you know, to make a record. And then I started looking at it, kind of the entirety of it. And I had 6 or 7 things that were real traditional, you know. And I said, man, I could make a real traditional country record with this batch of songs, maybe a couple more. And then this one, all these kind of, you know, love songs, and smoky kind of sexy songs were all fitting in a deal. And then I had a bunch of raucous things. I played a lot of guitar on stuff. And I went to the record company and I said, man, I think I got a neat idea here. I don't know what to do with it. I think I have about 3 records worth of stuff. We could maybe finish them up and put one out every 3 or 4 months. And they said, no, man, go back in, make a 4th record. We'll do a box set of all new music. Said, you've always wanted to do a bluegrassy kind of Americana record, you know, so do that too. And so away I went. And it was easily the most rewarding creative stretch of my life, getting to go in so many different ways. I did a jazz duet with Diana Krall. I did a bluegrass duet with Del McCurry.
It should be in a program over at Belmont. It's a master class in country music, from all the way from the bluegrass stuff to the grooving stuff. It's got everything that you would ever find in the history of country music. It's all there.
Well, it was
And
fun. It was a lot of fun.
It's really amazing. The thing with your ballads is I started thinking about just the emotion that you get into it, and we're all trying for that. I like to think a lot about our songwriting as what actors do
Sure.
when they're trying to find the truth and the depth and what you're really supposed to be feeling, so maybe some words will come out. And I thought, man, if you were an actor, the way you emote on those, you would be one of those actors when they need somebody who can really cry in a scene. You can count on Vince to,
town crier,
to
that's what they
drag it
call me.
out, to just drag it out. I don't know what's really going on in there, but you made it feel right on the record and the emotion. You know, if you went into acting, get you and Meryl Streep in a scene and let the tears flow, man.
You know, I am an emotional guy, just straight up, and it's not just, you know, sad stuff. I get mad. I love to tell jokes. We've known each other forever, and we're always telling dirty jokes. And it's a great old story about Amy and me when we first started spending time together, and we were playing golf, and I'm pretty famous for being a hothead on the golf course. Not anymore, but the damage is done, so it doesn't really matter. And so we're playing, and I hit a shot, and I'm not so happy, and I stick the club in the bag and break the head off, you know, and I'm just, you know, I wanted to do it subtly, and she turned around and saw me, and I go, I'm sorry. She goes, oh, that doesn't surprise me. I said, what do you mean? She goes, well, she says, you're an emotional guy. She said, nobody laughs harder than you do at jokes, and you love to laugh. You love comedians. You always love funny movies, and you laugh from the tips of your toes when something's funny. She says, and I've seen you completely fall apart in front of the whole world, you know, cry your eyes out and this and that. She said, now you've hit a golf shot and you're mad, you know. She goes, you can't control any of your emotions. And she said, how could you ever expect to control one emotion if you can't control any of your emotions? And that was pretty powerful.
Yeah.
Because all my life, all I ever got was grief about that emotion, about anger. You know, and then somebody pointed out the entirety of what I was, and it was powerful. Pretty cool.
Nice. God bless her.
Yeah. So, there's not much point in getting mad anymore. I'm 64 and I can't play so good anymore.
Makes me think of your song "When My Amy Prays,"
Yeah.
and I'm thinking, what might she be praying for?
But that, you know, I go to music for emotion. I don't go to impress somebody with how I can sing, how I can play. I go to it because it moves me. If it can move me, then maybe I can move you. And that's the only point of it. I don't care about it being perfect. I don't, you know, none of that is that appealing to me. That's kind of generic, kind of feels like it might be a little bit on the boring side, but if there's emotion in there and there's something to draw from it, that's the point of it. I've always gone to music because of how it made me feel, not because of how impressive it was. You know, I love melancholy. Always have and always will.
I'm wondering if you've been able to keep track of how many bands you've been in.
Oh, I don't know. You know, I just answered the phone, and one band led to another band and you know what was fun for me, Clint, was I don't think I ever really aspired to be an artist, so to speak. I didn't sit in the mirror with my hairbrush thinking I was Elvis. You know, I just had my head down. I was trying to learn to play better and get better. And to me, my success was always predicated on if the move I was making to the next band was full of better players. Was it making me a better singer? Was it making me a better writer, a better player? All those things. And that's kind of what I always tried to do. Before I made When I Call Your Name, I got this great call from Mark Knopfler. And he's the guy that has the band Dire Straits, for all of you in the world that don't know who Mark is. A great player and great writer and all those things. Fan. And he called and, you know, said, I want you to be in the band. I said, what? You know, he said, I want you to go on tour. And I said, oh my God, you know, and it would have solved most of my problems. I was having a little bit of trouble paying my house note and just getting by. And I told him, I said, man, I want to do this more than anything. But if I do it, I said, I've tried for so long. I said, I think I have something to offer country music. It hadn't happened yet, but if I bail on myself, then I can't expect anybody else to keep believing and trying and all of that. And I think as much as I could use the gig, and I'm going to reluctantly say no, you know, and I didn't have a reason to. I didn't know that When I Call Your Name was going to change my life, but just a pretty lucky leap of faith.
Yeah, you did have something to contribute, and
Well,
you know, I mean, think
it was
about
hard to believe
think about
for a while.
think about what all we would have missed out on. I think about that with my favorite musicians and groups. Some we lost so young, and I think about what we lost. And if you'd gone on tour with Mark, you know, all those great songs. We probably not going to get any great ones now that you're touring with the Eagles. I'm thinking. I'm wondering if that was an automatic yes. Was there any hesitation?
I tell you, I tell everybody, I said, it took me 60 years to get a really good gig. But of course, you know, that was an easy yes for several reasons. You know, I knew those guys for a long time. I was really good friends with Glenn, and we shared the same manager in the years that the Eagles were broken up. And so I was around him a good bit. And after his passing, I didn't think they'd go suit up and do it again. You know, most people didn't think they would. And I had just worked on Don's record called Cass County. And Joe and I had been friends for a long time from doing those Eric Clapton Crossroads Guitar Festival shows together. So we become friends and written a few songs. And he said, hey, you interested? And I said, yeah, you got to make the questions harder. You know, I said, I'm in. You know, and I wanted to do it because of my love for Glenn too. And I realized how important those songs are. That's been the greatest gift of getting to do it, is stand on a stage and getting to be a part of those songs.
Great catalog.
It's unbelievable. I don't know that you could find a better catalog of songs by an American band.
Back in '98, I got a call from Jimmy Buffett to go out and play in his band on the summer tour, play harmonica.
Oh, neat.
Yeah, I'm a huge Jimmy Buffett fan. The first time I opened for him in Mobile, and I'm just hanging out with him, singing harmonies all around it because I know all of his melodies so well. And so we became friends, and then he called after his harmonica player left, and he's asking me on the phone. And of course, it's the same.
Neat. Yeah.
It's the same thing instantly. And he said, "Now let's talk money." And I said, "Well, I can't pay you much, but I got something that I can give you." And I'm just imagining what you're having to pay the Eagles to be out there with those guys.
They made me an offer I couldn't understand, and so I had to do it.
Yeah, you think of all the musical heroes we have, and when I dreamed of making it in the business, I wanted a crew and to be on the radio, and that was it. And I never dreamed I'm on a song with George Jones, you know.
Yeah, I know.
Merle Haggard's my special guest on tour.
If I aspired to be anything, it was just a musician and maybe a session player and get invited to play and sing on records. And I'm as proud of working on probably 1,000 different artists' records in my career than the stuff I've done on my own. It's equally as important to me. I know I'm in the minority of being interested in all that stuff. Most people just go, hey, I like the song, feels good, I'm all about it. But I want to know who played bass, I want to know who played drums, I want to know who sang harmony. And I always felt like all those jobs were harder than getting to be the guy up front to show off and do what he did, you know. And when you were the guy that had to enhance what somebody else was doing, I always thought that was a harder job and a little bit more appealing. So I like being in the background too. I like being the side man.
Yeah.
Always have. And
Yeah.
the whole Eagles experience has been that in a sense, you know. Get to be in a band. And that's the best compliment Don Henley gave me, was when somebody said, why him? He said, he knows how to be in a band.
That is, yeah. You're records sound better and better.
Thank you.
The hooks are still great, and I feel like I could do this with you for another hour.
Well, anytime.
So many
We've known
things
each other a long time, since probably
Yeah.
about 88, I think. And back when we went on the road, both of us opening for Reba. She took us in, and
As long as I've known you, I'm still greatly honored that you came in, sit with me and talk in circles.
pleasure.
I know if you've been watching it for years, you know this question I'm going to ask you, which I ask all my guests.
It's a new show. I don't know what it is.
What? Okay, then.
Okay, let's have it.
Well, when you get to heaven,
Oh.
if you could play with anyone who is already there, who would it be and what song would you play?
Oh, man. Great question. Not sure I'm going to get to go. I had a sordid past.
You got a good prayer, though, who
I
prays
have a
hard
sordid
for you.
future, too, I think, sometimes. God, I'd play
There's no future in the past, so
maybe Chet.
got a song in mind?
Oh, Country Gentleman's pretty good.
Pretty
Anything
good.
he played. you know.
Yeah. Well, I hope it's going to be a long, long time before you get to play with Chet again. So let's make sure that happens. And
Okay.
until then, thanks again for talking in circles with me. And
Good to see you, old friend.
enjoyed it as much as I knew I would.
All right. Thanks, pal.
Thanks.
Vince Gill.